The rain was relentless, mirroring the storm brewing inside me. My reflection in the taxi window was a pale, determined stranger, a carefully crafted mask. Today was the day my old life died, and a new one, bathed in the glow of 3 million stolen dollars, would begin. My parents, poor, unsuspecting souls, were probably already grieving, their tears fueling the very fire I was about to ignite beneath them. The thought brought a grim, satisfying smile to my lips. It wasn't about hate, not really. It was about freedom, about proving I was more than just the overlooked daughter, the one always in the shadow of my golden boy brother, Michael. This was my grand exit, my masterpiece. The plan had been meticulously sculpted over months, each detail polished to a dangerous gleam. The car accident, a tragic skid on a rain-slicked road, was the perfect cover. I'd chosen a secluded stretch of highway known for its treacherous curves, far enough from any prying eyes, but close enough for the wreckage to be discovered eventually. The car, a rental under a false name, was already a mangled heap at the bottom of a ravine, a carefully placed decoy, complete with a few personal effects that would confirm my supposed demise. The police, bless their naive hearts, would find enough evidence to declare it a fatal accident. No body, of course, just enough to fuel the media frenzy and the despair of my family. My phone buzzed with a message from an untraceable burner, a final confirmation from my accomplice, a down-on-his-luck former private investigator I'd paid handsomely to tie up loose ends and ensure no lingering questions would spoil my grand illusion. He confirmed the bank transfer was complete, the $3 million from the family business account now sitting comfortably in an offshore account, just waiting for me to claim it. A smirk played on my lips. $3 million. It felt like a sweet symphony. The money was a severance package, a payment for years of feeling invisible, unheard, and unappreciated. It was my compensation for a childhood spent trying to earn a love that always seemed to gravitate towards Michael. As the taxi pulled up to the airport, the gray skies seemed to weep for the woman I was pretending to be, but I felt no sadness, only a surge of adrenaline, a thrilling anticipation. My new passport, a vibrant shade of blue, felt cool and substantial in my hand. New name, new identity, new life. I walked through the terminal, each step a defiant stride away from the shackles of my past. I imagined my parents, shattered, trying to comprehend the incomprehensible. My mother, probably wailing. My father, a stoic mask crumbling under the weight of grief. The image was vivid, a bittersweet pang in my chest. They would sob at my funeral, mourn a daughter who was very much alive, orchestrating their pain from afar. They didn't know the truth, and they never would. This was just the beginning. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next chapters of this intense story. The warm Bahamian sun was a stark contrast to the relentless rain of my funeral day. Here, surrounded by turquoise waters and swaying palms, I was truly reborn. My new name, Eleanor Vance, felt natural on my tongue, shedding the ghost of my former self, Catherine Hayes. The villa I rented was opulent, a testament to the power of $3 million. Each morning I'd wake to the sound of waves, a symphony of liberation. I spent my days lounging by the infinity pool, sipping exotic cocktails, and browsing high-end boutiques. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just existing. I was living, on my own terms, free from the crushing expectations of my family. Yet, even amidst this paradise, a shadow lingered. It wasn't guilt, not exactly. It was more a phantom ache, a ghost of the life I'd abandoned. Sometimes, in the quiet of the night, images would flash in my mind. My mother's tear-streaked face, my father's bewildered grief. I'd quickly push them away, reminding myself of their perceived neglect, the endless comparisons to Michael, the constant feeling of being second best. This was my justice, I'd tell myself. This was my freedom. The money wasn't just cash. It was leverage, a barrier against ever feeling powerless again. My days were a carefully constructed facade. I'd mingle with other expats, making small talk about mundane things, never letting slip the real story of how Eleanor Vance came to be. I learned to perfect the art of casual conversation, to deflect probing questions with practiced ease. My accomplice, the former PI, occasionally sent encrypted updates, confirming that the investigation into my death had been closed, and the family was slowly, painfully, accepting their loss. Each update was a small victory, a confirmation that my carefully woven web of lies was holding strong. One evening, as I watched the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and purple, a strange feeling washed over me. It wasn't sorrow, but a profound sense of isolation. I had achieved everything I set out to do, yet there was an emptiness that even the lavish surroundings couldn't fill. I had exchanged a life of perceived constraint for one of absolute solitude. I had no one to share my triumphs with, no one to truly celebrate this hard-won freedom. The warmth of the sun began to feel cold, the laughter of distant revelers hollow. For a fleeting moment, I wondered if the cost of my freedom was higher than I had anticipated. But then, I pushed the thought away. Regret was a luxury I couldn't afford. Months bled into a year. The initial exhilaration of my new life had subtly morphed into a comfortable routine. The days were still filled with leisure, but the thrill had dulled, replaced by a quiet sameness. I'd started to feel a peculiar restlessness, a craving for something more, something beyond endless sunsets and designer clothes. It was a dangerous feeling, a crack in the carefully constructed dam of my new identity. One afternoon, while browsing a news site on my tablet, a familiar name caught my eye: Hayes Industries. My heart gave a jolt. It was an article about Michael, my brother, taking over as CEO of our family's company. A photograph accompanied the article. Michael, looking older, more strained, but still with that air of effortless confidence. Next to him, my father, his face etched with a deep sadness I hadn't seen before. My mother was absent from the photo, a silent testament to the void I had created. I clicked on the article, a knot forming in my stomach. The words blurred as I read about the challenges Michael faced, the financial difficulties the company was experiencing, a direct result, I knew, of the $3 million I had siphoned off. They spoke of the burden he was shouldering, the immense pressure to keep the family legacy alive, all while dealing with the recent tragedy. The words, meant to paint Michael as a hero, felt like daggers. I saw the comments section, filled with condolences for the Hayes family, praise for Michael's strength, and a fleeting mention of poor Catherine. A strange mix of emotions swirled within me, a flicker of pride that my absence had caused such a stir, quickly followed by a pang of something akin to regret. No, I quickly dismissed it. This was their problem, not mine. They had their golden boy, their chosen successor. Let him bear the weight. I had secured my own future. Yet, the image of my father's sorrowful face lingered, a stark contrast to the vibrant, carefree life I had built. The echo of my past life, it seemed, was beginning to resonate even in this sun-drenched paradise. The carefully built walls of indifference were starting to show hairline fractures. The news about Hayes Industries gnawed at me. What had started as a fleeting pang had festered into a persistent discomfort. I found myself checking business news more frequently, seeking updates on the company's struggles. Each article about their declining profits and Michael's visible stress felt like a direct consequence of my actions, a ripple effect I hadn't fully anticipated. My initial satisfaction was now tinged with an unfamiliar bitterness. The isolation that once felt like freedom now felt like a cage. I had successfully cut myself off from my past, but in doing so, I had severed all true connections. The people I met in the Bahamas were superficial, their friendships as fleeting as the tides. There was no one here who truly knew me, no one to share genuine moments with, no one to confide in. The weight of my secret, once a source of power, was beginning to feel like a heavy cloak, suffocating me. One particularly lonely evening, as a tropical storm raged outside, mirroring the turmoil within me, I found myself staring at an old photograph I'd kept hidden away, a picture of my family from years ago, before the animosity had fully bloomed. My mother was laughing, my father's arm around her, and Michael and I, much younger, were smiling, innocent and carefree. A genuine smile, not the forced one I often wore in social settings. A wave of unexpected nostalgia washed over me, a yearning for a connection I had deliberately destroyed. The money, once my ultimate symbol of victory, now felt hollow. It bought me luxury, but it couldn't buy peace. It bought me anonymity, but it couldn't buy true companionship. The perfect life I had envisioned was far from perfect. It was a gilded cage, and I was the sole, lonely inhabitant. The whispers of doubt that had started as faint murmurs were now growing louder, questioning every choice I had made, every lie I had told. The foundation of my carefully constructed freedom was starting to crack, revealing the barren landscape beneath. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more gripping chapters. The cracks in my perfect facade widened with each passing day. The once vibrant Bahamian landscape now seemed to blur into a monotonous backdrop. I started to notice things, the way the other expats subtly excluded me from certain circles, the fleeting looks of suspicion in their eyes when my past inevitably came up in conversation, and I offered vague, evasive answers. My carefully constructed anonymity was not as impenetrable as I had believed. My accomplice, the former PI, grew increasingly demanding. His initial payments had been substantial, but now he was asking for more, hinting at unforeseen complications and rising expenses. His messages became less polite, more insistent, bordering on veiled threats. He knew too much, held too much power over my carefully guarded secret. The thrill of our partnership had curdled into a festering anxiety. He was a constant reminder of the tightrope I walked, one misstep away from falling into the abyss of exposure. The financial news about Hayes Industries continued to be bleak. The headlines screamed of impending bankruptcy, of job losses, of a legacy crumbling. I saw Michael on a news segment, his face haggard, his eyes shadowed with stress. He was fighting a losing battle, and I was the unseen architect of his downfall. The initial vindication I had felt was now replaced by a chilling realization. I had not just stolen money, I had stolen their future, their stability, their very peace of mind. One night, a vivid dream jolted me awake. I was at my own funeral, but instead of my parents sobbing, they were staring at me, their eyes filled not with grief, but with a cold, knowing accusation. Michael stood beside them, a single tear tracing a path down his cheek, but his gaze was filled with an unyielding anger. I woke up in a cold sweat, the dream lingering like a bad taste in my mouth. The seeds of unease had fully sprouted, blooming into a garden of fear and growing guilt. The luxury surrounding me felt like a cruel mockery, a constant reminder of the real cost of my ill-gotten gains. The phone call came on a Tuesday, a day that had started like any other, filled with the usual empty pleasures. It was my accomplice. His voice was sharper, colder than ever before. "They're onto something, Eleanor," he rasped, his words sending a jolt of ice through my veins. "The company's auditors found inconsistencies, big ones. They're digging deeper. And Michael, he's not letting this go." My carefully constructed world began to tilt. Inconsistencies. Michael. The words echoed in my mind, each one a hammer blow against my fragile peace. My initial plan had been foolproof, or so I thought. But auditors, unlike grieving parents, were relentless in their pursuit of numbers. Michael, driven by a desperate need to save his family's legacy, would be even more so. The fear that had been a distant hum was now a roaring alarm. I tried to regain control, to assure myself that my tracks were thoroughly covered. But doubt, once a whisper, was now a scream. The offshore accounts, the false identity, the staged accident. What if there was a flaw, a tiny thread I had overlooked, a breadcrumb leading directly back to me? The reality of my situation hit me with the force of a physical blow. I was not free. I was trapped, not by my family, but by my own deception. Panic began to set in. The luxurious villa, once my sanctuary, now felt like a prison. Every stranger I saw, every distant siren, sent my heart racing. I started to scrutinize my interactions, replaying conversations, searching for any hint that someone might suspect. The isolation, which I had once embraced, now became my torment. There was no one to turn to, no one to share this crushing burden with. The weight of my secret was no longer just heavy, it was suffocating me. My carefully crafted facade was not just cracking, it was crumbling, piece by painful piece. The news from my accomplice became increasingly dire. "They've hired a new team of forensic accountants," he reported, his voice tinged with genuine fear this time. "They're experts, and they're looking at everything. Every transaction, every employee record, every shadow." My blood ran cold. Forensic accountants meant a systematic, relentless hunt for financial fraud. It was only a matter of time before they uncovered the truth. My attempts to reassure myself were futile. The fear was a constant companion, a cold hand gripping my heart. Sleep became a luxury I could no longer afford, haunted by nightmares of handcuffs and flashing cameras. The beautiful Bahamian scenery, once a source of joy, now felt oppressive, the relentless sun a spotlight on my mounting panic. I started avoiding public places, convinced that every gaze was a suspicious one, every conversation a veiled attempt to unmask me. I considered fleeing again, disappearing to another country, under another false identity, but the thought brought no comfort. The world felt smaller, more dangerous. How long could I keep running? How many times could I rebuild a life on a foundation of lies before it all came crashing down? The money, once my salvation, now felt like a curse, a constant reminder of the irreversible path I had chosen. One day, I saw a familiar face in a local newspaper, my former PI. He was being questioned by authorities about an unrelated fraud case. My stomach dropped. If he was caught, what would stop him from revealing my secret to save himself? He knew everything. The net was tightening, not just around Hayes Industries, but around me. The walls of my fabricated paradise were closing in, and there was nowhere left to hide. The carefully constructed life of Eleanor Vance was dissolving, leaving only Catherine Hayes, a woman on the precipice of utter ruin. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for the thrilling conclusion. The call came from Michael. His voice, once warm and familiar, was now cold, steely, and laced with a pain that cut through me like a knife. "Catherine," he said, and the sound of my real name, after so long, sent shivers down my spine. "We know everything." My world shattered. The carefully constructed lies, the years of planning, the stolen millions, all of it collapsed in that single devastating sentence. There was no denial, no feigned surprise left in me, just a profound, crushing emptiness. My throat tightened, words failing me. I could hear my own ragged breath, the sound amplified in the sudden silence of the villa. He continued, his voice unwavering, a testament to the strength I had always resented. The forensic team found the trail, the offshore accounts, the shell companies, even the PI. He sang like a canary when they offered him a deal. "We know you faked your death, Catherine. We know you stole the $3 million. The air grew heavy, thick with unspoken accusations and years of buried resentment. My mind raced, but there was no escape, no angle, no lie left to tell. The truth, raw and unyielding, was laid bare. I imagined their faces, my mother's heartbroken betrayal, my father's quiet devastation, Michael's righteous anger. I had built my freedom on their grief, and now that foundation had crumbled, leaving me exposed and utterly alone. The price of my deception was no longer just money. It was the complete annihilation of any remaining connection to my past, to my family, to any semblance of a moral compass. I had traded love for luxury, and now I had neither. The next few weeks were a blur of legal proceedings, a relentless unraveling of my meticulously woven web of lies. I was extradited back to the United States, the Bahamian sun replaced by the harsh fluorescent lights of a courtroom. The anonymity I had craved was shattered, replaced by the relentless glare of the media. Headlines screamed about the heiress who faked her death, and my face, once a carefully crafted mask, was now plastered across every news channel, a symbol of greed and betrayal. My parents were there, in the courtroom, their faces etched with a profound sorrow that was far more potent than any anger. My mother's eyes, once full of a distant affection, now held only a deep, wounded incomprehension. My father, frail and stoic, seemed to have aged decades since I last saw him. Michael, standing by their side, was a pillar of controlled fury. His gaze, when it met mine, was a cold, unwavering accusation, a reflection of the trust I had so spectacularly broken. The evidence against me was overwhelming. The PI, now a star witness for the prosecution, detailed every step of my elaborate scheme. The financial records, meticulously laid out, proved the systematic theft from the family business. My own carefully curated new life, once a symbol of success, became the undeniable proof of my guilt. Every luxury, every extravagance I had indulged in, was now held up as an exhibit, a stark reminder of the immense damage I had inflicted. There were no excuses left, no justifications I could offer that would mitigate the gravity of my actions. The years of feeling overlooked, the resentment towards Michael, the desire for independence, They all faded into insignificance against the stark reality of my betrayal. I had caused immense pain, not just financially, but emotionally, destroying the very fabric of my family. As the judge's gavel finally fell, pronouncing my sentence, the weight of my crimes settled on me, a heavy, inescapable burden. The reckoning had arrived, and there was no escaping its crushing embrace. The gray walls of the prison cell were a stark contrast to the vibrant hues of the Bahamas. Here, there was no sun, no turquoise water, no luxurious comforts, only the cold, hard reality of my confinement. My days were regulated, monotonous, stripped of any semblance of the freedom I had so desperately sought. I was no longer Eleanor Vance, the wealthy expat. I was Catherine Hayes, a prisoner of my own making. The $3 million, what was left of it after legal fees and restitution to Hayes Industries, was a ghost, a phantom limb. It had bought me nothing but this. My parents, in their quiet anguish, had visited once, a strained, silent affair. Their faces were etched with a weariness that spoke volumes, a pain I had inflicted. Michael had not come. I didn't blame him. The solitude, once a choice, was now an imposed reality. I had ample time to reflect, to replay the choices that had led me down this path. The resentment, the feeling of being second best, the desperate craving for validation, they had all fueled my destructive ambition. I saw now with agonizing clarity that my actions had not liberated me. They had bound me tighter than ever before. I hadn't just stolen money. I had stolen their peace, their trust, and in doing so, I had stolen my own. The emotional impact was profound. I missed the simple things, the warmth of a genuine smile, the sound of laughter that wasn't forced or feigned. I missed the messy, imperfect reality of family, even with its perceived flaws. My parents' sobs at my funeral now echoed in my mind, a haunting reminder of the love I had carelessly discarded. There was no miraculous healing, no sudden epiphany of forgiveness, just the slow, painful process of confronting the consequences of my selfishness. I had sought freedom, but found only a deeper form of imprisonment. And in the quiet solitude of my cell, I began to understand that the greatest theft of all had been from myself. This marks the end of our thrilling story. Thank you for watching, and remember to subscribe to the channel for more captivating narratives.